Again, always looking for interesting or different ways to look at how we can strategically grow the business. I think it's just a different approach. Looking at the numbers, looking at the economics of it and the ratios, I think was really fascinating. And it's a different approach I hadn't really seen before. I think take the personalities out of the people and look at them as what they do, and sort of try and analyse that ratio and see where we're missing, to look at what we can do differently going forward. And probably the other thing that I really think is about capacity and how we can fill that gap to get higher profit from the capacity we have.
I've been to one of these seminars before with Darren Sherlaw, but I was interested to see Nick's take on this. I did find it really interesting actually, so I think he went probably into a bit more detail. Maybe it's because I already had the context from the previous seminar, but I felt I've got closer to being able to understand how I can apply it to my business now. Something Nick did today was the kind of capacity modelling, understanding what percentage efficiency I'm running my business at. I fear it's probably only around 30%. It wasn't something I kind of thought in that way. And probably the other thing related to that is that he did kind of the blue revenue generating, red admin costs and black strategy. And I thought I was pretty good on that because I've only got one admin person out of a 20-person team. But I think the reality is probably that I've got a lot of people doing bits of admin when they should be focused on revenue generating. So I think those two things. I'm going to work out what my ultimate capacity is today. So the one thing I probably learned from today that I want to apply is really understanding the capacity of my business. How much could I do with the current team and versus what I'm actually doing? I feel it's pretty low. I want to figure that out today and figure out how I change it.
And London Grace is a beauty brand. We are the leading nail care brand in London. We have 8 stores and they combine a nail bar, coffee shop and cocktail bar. And then we also have our own products that we use in store and retail as well.
The reason we came to the event today was because we get very little time to sort of work together on the strategic side of our business. And today we thought it was a good opportunity to do that together and have a think about how we want to grow it.
I think definitely the top-down approach, so looking at where we want to be, and I loved the kind of analogy of using it as like an architect's plan. So you've got this building in mind or end goal in mind, and working on the plan now to make sure that that becomes a reality, because often as a small business or a scale-up business you can be very focused in the here and now and have kind of an idea of where you're going, but I like the idea of having a very set goal and then working down.
I've come here today mostly for personal interest, but also because I'd like to have more theory about growth in business and for the next years, because I'm planning to develop and grow from my career. The most useful thing I learned today is mostly market growth and predictability in cycles. Nick was really interesting, and he demonstrated how you can predict the market cycles through the years, the 14 and 18, which was true back in the years back in Egypt times. So that was really interesting.
I came here today to actually gain a better understanding of the company and how it's going to grow in the future, and get some ideas for how to take back to the company for how to grow. One thing that I found really valuable was actually the build-up of the teams and the allocation of the resources and jobs within them. So the crossover between roles and actually building it up and making it more efficient as a team. Yeah, I found that the way the market trends actually rise and dip, the way that you can cut into the market trends if you plan ahead and actually take out some of those dips, was really useful to actually understand.
I'd met Nick and some of the team, was very impressed with them, and I was just interested to hear more about the work that they do and see the relevance for my own business. 2 things, I think, to learn and to network. Nick's obviously got some very sort of interesting people in his circle. What I learned was, I guess it prompted me as a newer business owner to think differently about how I plan for the future, to think top down rather than bottom up, and to imagine what my business might need to look like to achieve more ambitious revenue potential, and also to think about what was the natural next step in terms of staffing and resourcing. So my natural go-to would have been to think, right, I need some operational support, and this has prompted me to think, actually, is that the right thing? right now, or should I be looking at who else I can bring on who can help me build the business and grow it that way?
I always try to continue my sort of learning journey, so I'm always looking out for opportunities to understand other things and stretch my own learning. I got invited and thought this sounds like an interesting opportunity to learn something new. So I came along just because I've got a curious and inquisitive nature and wanted to learn something new. One of the most interesting things was from the macro sort of economic perspective. I tend to work very much in the sort of micro space, where dealing with today's issues. It was really interesting to see that there's a pattern which seems to be uncontrollable in terms of economic booms and busts. So I thought that was particularly fascinating because I've never actually looked at the history behind the stock market trends and economic cycles, and how obviously that might affect businesses, which is obviously completely out of your control, but really useful to know that that we are in a cycle and how that might affect us. I probably spend most of my time looking at other people's businesses and how they solve their problems. So today gave me an opportunity to actually look at my own business and work on my business, which I'm always getting other people to do and never get a chance to do myself. So that's probably something that's I'm going to reflect on, and the black, red, and blue sort of personalities within businesses and how those different roles are juggled and how they affect the effectiveness of the business.
I decided to come along today because I was really interested in what Nick in particular has to say about business growth. His history of working with different businesses, different structures, it's really interesting to me, and I want to see how it worked for me. In particular, I was seriously impressed by Nick's knowledge and the way the presentation flows. It's very fast-paced, but keeps you interested. The most interesting part for me was the structure of business, as in 3 people doesn't work, 4 people really work, 7 people doesn't work, 12 people is a winning team. So that sort of structure is really interesting and something that I'll take away and use.
I've recently come on board as a partner, so it is incredibly useful for me and for James to be speaking the same language when we're looking at how we take the business forward and how we plan for growth in the future.
Something that I'll apply to our business is thinking about teams of 4. I found that really interesting, and also thinking about the ratio of that team. So the number of employees who are working on kind of blue client stuff and the number that are working on red admin stuff. So really fascinating. And never have 7 employees.